So I used to work at this place called Iwa's Thai Cuisine. It's a Thai restaurant in downtown Flagstaff. It's absolutely awful. I wouldn't recommend it, but it was a job, and I was a server there. And one of the employees, who was actually my boss, um, was hitting on me like really hard, and so I let her know that I wasn't dating or anything, and that I wasn't interested. Um, and then she let me know that her and her girlfriend give people services. Like she's a prostitute basically. And so I kind of like played nice and but didn't go along with it, and kind of was like, oh yeah, no thank you. And come to find out that a transgender person that I worked with, who I had trouble identifying as transgender because she looks like a man, but her name is Tara, and she was really frustrated at first when I didn't assume she was a woman. So I was like saying him and stuff, and she's like, actually, I identify as a woman. I was like, oh shit, I had no idea. And so that was an interesting lesson and a little difficult to get used to, but I apologized and tried to be as accommodating as I could, but she would later try to use that against me. The fact that I didn't see her, like without knowing her, I assumed she was a man. And anyways, later on down the road, I'm a human being. I go home. I need to take care of my needs. It's not a time in my life where I'm dating or anything, and so I go on the internet to look things up to get my motor going, which is kind of funny to say out loud, but gotta do what I gotta do. And Tara and Jasmine have their pornos up on my page, and it's like I didn't look their names up or anything, but they were sending me porn basically, and it was really uncomfortable. Like, I'm definitely not into transgender people. I'm just a straight dude. But not only is Tara transgender, but she has like both types of genitalia, and it's just like I'm just not into watching that. Like that's not what I enjoy, and I reserve the right to, um, you know, not particularly enjoy things. Um, I have my own orientation the same way she has hers, right? And so, anyways, I didn't watch them, and I didn't care to. And I go to work the next day, and I don't address the fact that they were sending me this kind of stuff. And Tara makes a whole big fuss about it, and she starts accusing me of stealing tables. And it's like, hey, if there was ever a table mix-up, we can always even it out. You can take my table instead. Like, there's no reason for there to be drama trumped up over nonsense. And it happens when restaurants are really busy. Somebody walks in, gets seated. You got to get them waters right away. You got to get the menus right away. Um, and you start serving them, right? And we kind of did this thing where we would take turns with tables, and Tara took advantage of that, and would cause a whole fuss. And if she got like two less customers than me, then she would say, "Oh, I need to take the next table because I have less customers than you." And it's like, sorry, that's not the system we go by here. We do table by table. Even if somebody has more people or less people, and they get more tips or less tips, it all evens out at the end of the month, and that's how plenty of restaurants do it. But Tara was always trying to like micromanage things in a way where she always came up on top, right? Like if I had less customers and I made less tips because I had smaller tables, it's not like she went out of her way to give me a table. It's not like I went and asked for a table because, as somebody who has been in the serving industry for a while, has been a waiter, I understand that kind of just works itself out with time. There's no reason to cause a bunch of drama over it. But Tara didn't feel that way, and she would cause drama, and she would steal tables, and she would erase numbers off of the whiteboard where we tracked how many tables we had to make sure that she looked like she had less. Um, Even Jasmine Barkis, one of the ladies that was sending me her porn, even she admitted that. And so, yeah, that got uncomfortable. Um, and when Jasmine and Tara weren't able to seduce me and weren't able to force a relationship or force some sort of even sexual involvement with me, um, Iwa actually resorted to attempting to do the very thing, and she would try seducing me and sending me her pornos, and um, She even started dressing really provocatively, and she would have her husband over, as some sort of a handoff, to like try to have her husband pass her off to me. And it was just like, that's not how I go about those kinds of things in my life. I understand sexual openness and adventurousness and swinging. I understand it all, but that's not really how I go about things. And so that was really uncomfortable. And so Iwa's Thai Cuisine became this like really weird place where, and a lot of restaurants, everybody's banging everybody. I mean, restaurant work, it's stressful. People need to let off steam, and they're also fucking degenerates a lot of times. I mean, I say that jokingly, but anybody that's worked restaurants kind of knows what I mean. People are always smoking weed in the refrigerator, blah, blah, blah. And so I just kept my head down and kept working, and I, let people know that I was leaving work at work, and I even texted Jasmine Barkus. I was like, hey, we all have our sex lives. I get it, but I need you to keep that separate from work. I go to work to serve some tables, make some money, and go home. Like, I keep it that simple. I'm not really interested in sleeping with a transgender person, an intergender person. I'm not interested in sleeping with you, and I'm not interested in sleeping with our boss. Like, we all have sex. I get it. We're all adults here. You need to understand how to take no as an answer. And so that's when all the drama started. Instead of interpreting my text as some sort of clarification of where I stand and that she no longer needs to send me nudies and pornos and no longer needs to obsess over me being in a relationship with her, what she did instead was she tried further forcing a relationship and punishing me if I refused. So when I was scheduled for a shift, after not watching Tara's porno one day when Tara sent me a porno, I refused to watch it. The next day, just 1 hour before my shift, so I was getting ready to go to work and stuff. I had my shift starting in an hour. They call me and they cancel my shift. I go, why are you canceling my shift? I was on the schedule. You weren't on the schedule. Why are you in and why am I cut off, right? So she's just basically stealing my shift. She's like, oh, well, we always like to have one manager on duty. And it's like, okay, Iwa and you are there. Like, both of you are there. And so there's no need for you to cancel my shift. Why don't you cancel Tara's shift instead? Clearly you're targeting me because I didn't want to have sex with you, right? And her and Tara are like besties outside of work, and they're banging each other all the time and stuff. And Jasmine, like I said earlier, she's a prostitute. She gets paid for sex. Like a lot, the whole National Guard community knows her because she's their little hookup. And they let me know as much, and she let me know as much. It's not like I'm insulting her. It's not like I'm pretending she's a hooker. Like, it's just a downright fact. She's a lesbian. She prefers girls. Blah blah blah. But she gets paid to have sex, and oftentimes it's men. And so I moved on, and I was like, okay, you caused a little trouble. You canceled my shift for no reason. I made sure to get it in writing. I made sure to text them about it. They made up some nonsense of, oh, we always need one manager on duty and blah, blah, blah. It's like, we always have a manager on duty. That's never an excuse to just cancel somebody's shift. And I only got a few shifts a week in the first place. So it's like, you're affecting my finances. You're being very selfish. And you're desperate for me to date you. And you're punishing me for not doing it. That's not cool. So I moved on. The next day, she goes whispering to the chef, and when I have an order put in, they don't make the order. The customer makes a whole big fuss about it. I have to go tell Iwa. Iwa tries blaming me. I show her the ticket. I'm like, look, I put in the ticket. It's in the computer system. The chef got the ticket. The chef refused to make the meal. And so, the customers were basically came up to us yelling and stuff. And understandably, I mean, they were made to wait an hour. And I was like, well, the ticket's in my window. The tickets must be in the chef's window. They're making the food, right? And we only have 2 walks at that restaurant, and food takes a long time to make. It's just a really disorganized, dysfunctional kind of a place to go try to eat during busy hours because, to be honest, they're more distracted with banging each other and all those other weird dynamics that they got going on. And so, that was another way she caused drama. She literally went and told the chef, don't make this thing. And then my meal wouldn't be made, and I'd ask where it went, and they'd be like, oh, we don't know where the ticket went. And I'd get in trouble for it. I'd take the fall, even though I put in an order in the system and everything. and then started the anti-gay drama, right? They proposed that since I wasn't interested in banging Tara, a transgender person with both a penis and a vagina, and I'm not into penises, nor do I find her looking like a woman or attractive at all to me. She kind of looks like a dude. And so I was like, I'm not interested, even if you do have a vagina, because like it's just so many reasons, and I shouldn't have to explain why. It's just like you proposition sex. I said no, move along, like as if it wasn't already somebody trying to shit where they eat, which I don't enjoy doing. And so I was not interested in that. And so she tried accusing me of being anti-transgender and blah blah blah. And she started stirring up drama, and she started telling Iwa, "Oh, I'm having a hard time working with Mo." I was like, "I don't have a hard time working with any of the other people. I work just fine with Jasmine. I work just fine with everybody else. It's only Tara that's stirring up drama because I won't have sex with her." And that wasn't a secret. Like everybody knew. Everybody's banging everybody. Everybody talks about all that stuff, and everybody's in the know, right? Because I'm the new guy. They hired me because they liked the way I looked or something, and they thought they were gonna get a piece, and I said no, and so they're all frustrated, right? And so there's some grapevine communication going on in the background. They know that I'm not sleeping with Tara, and they know that Tara's all bent out of shape about it, um, and so I just wasn't interested in that. And I already have something going on in my life where somebody's trying to force gay relationships so that they can clear their name, and that person is General Tersini. Uh, she had me raped on base at a military base by one of her sergeants, and they put me under anesthesia. They stuck needles in me and stuff, and they erased the camera footage of it. And they try to cover it up as best as they can. I tried reporting it on base. They didn't allow me to report it. They started punishing me. They actually tortured me for it. They wouldn't give me food, but they would also lock me up in my room. And so it was this whole thing. And now she's trying to clear her name by going, "Oh, well, it must have been consensual because he's into men anyways, right?" And so she's trying to force this whole gay relationship thing. And I had an inkling of a suspicion that that's why this was going on, especially because Jasmine and Tara over at Iwa's Taikazine admitted that they were National Guardsmen and they were wearing disguises, and they even showed me their disguises. And Jasmine takes her uh, uh, face mask off. She looks much skinnier. Her skull shows a lot more. She looks a lot more similar to a chimp than she does otherwise, whereas she looks like a lot more chubby in the face when she is wearing her disguise, her mask. And so, they're National Guardsmen. They told me they were on patrol, whatever that means, and they work at a restaurant as servers. And so I kind of suspected there was a little bit of, we're trying to steal your security clearance compensation, we're trying to steal your sexual assault compensation going on. And that very much was the case. And what confirmed it later was Saif ul Haq coming into the restaurant in a really shabby attempt at a disguise and talking face to face with Jasmine Barkas and reading her some information off of a note. Um, and I got photographs of that. I made sure to get photos of Saif ul Haq being in direct communication with Jasmine Barkas, because it was important for me to document that. Um, and Saif ul Haq works for General Tersini, and they're all buddy buddy, and they all work for the 12th Air Force, their little spy squadron, and they're all attempting to rob me of my security clearance compensation. And what threw a wrench into their plan was the fact that I reported them for crime, which made them no longer able to surreptitiously rob me of my compensation. So I went ahead and let them know, hey, this is what's going on, this is what these people are doing. And so all of a sudden, all of these gay people are showing up in my life and causing me drama. Jasmine Barkas being one of them, and Tara Harrington being another one of them. And uh, and so Tara tried, setting the gay community loose on me, and which wasn't fair, right? Because I literally volunteered for the gay community of Flagstaff. I worked at a coffee shop, which was dominantly visited by gay folks, underprivileged folks. That was like the people that we would take care of. You could walk in there, you could get a free coffee if you couldn't pay right then and there. And we gave people like a safe space to hang out and do art and have coffee and spend time out of the weather if there was bad weather. And so I enjoyed working there. And I volunteered there. And Tara's roommate, also a homosexual, also volunteered there. Now, I'm a straight male, but I believe in taking care of people, especially disenfranchised people. And, I don't need to explain why I volunteered there, but I just want it to be clear that I cared for that community. And Tara was trying to paint this imagery of me being anti gay because I didn't want to bang her, because I didn't want to watch her pornos, which really aren't that impressive. And so I, I moved along and, just kept serving and stuff. And Tara set the gay community loose on me. They would come, they would become my tables. They would change their order halfway through after I already put it in the system. I would have to tell them, sorry, the chef's already making it. They would cause a whole fuss. Um, and they would come stoned and like slurring their words and not able to like effectively communicate, not able to order their meals quickly. They would spend like try to get me to spend 10 minutes on the table. Uh, Not so coincidentally, so did Saif ul Haq and his wife Viola when they visited the restaurant. They would act all special needs like, and they would try to take as long as possible to order. They were like, wait, 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 so tell me, what's your favorite meal? Okay, okay, but I like this one more. And it's like they would just like try to string me along and spend as much time as possible so that I would lose efficiency and not make as much money. And it was very obvious that they were doing this on purpose because it's only these subgroups of people. And I'm not racist, I'm not sexist, but I knew that Saif ul Haq was after my money, and Tara Harrington and Jasmine Barkas dropped some heavy hints that they were interested in being sexually involved so that they could be entitled to a portion of the compensation. As did Iwa, right? A lady that owns an entire restaurant, but she saw a bunch of money owed for my security clearance compensation, and she couldn't keep her legs shut. And so she was sending me pornos. She was suggesting that if I didn't get enough restaurant shifts in the day, maybe I should work as a prostitute during the morning times, like that downright degeneracy, straight up awful people to work with, the kind of employees you work with when you're working in unskilled labor. And I like to do all kinds of work. I can do blue collar work. I can do white collar work. I'm a trained welder. I've done machining quality assurance. I've worked in entrepreneurship. I've helped some businesses start up before. So I kind of enjoy doing it all, and I like to do it all, and I like to change it up. And I just happened to be a server during that period of my life. And so I kind of understood that my expectations needed to be a little bit lower with the human capital that I was working with. People can be kind of stupid, and it's not like the bar is set that high to be a server, right? You literally just go pick up the food and go bring it to the table, robot. It's not that big of a deal, but the pay is okay, so it's worth doing it if you want to work a few hours but work very hard during those hours, which is what I needed at that time in my life. That's what I wanted. So I did that. And so Tara started setting the gay community loose on me. After so many times of Jasmine telling the kitchen not to make a certain item that was ordered, the chef claiming that the ticket got blown away, and Tara having her gay coworker, her gay friends, show up and cause a fuss at the table, only to complain and leave a bad Google review. I went ahead and got fired by Iwa, right? The same lady that got mad at me for not banging her. And so I moved on with my life. I didn't hold a grudge over it. I just picked up my last paycheck and I moved on. And then as I volunteered just down the street at that coffee shop, some more gay folks came by and tried starting a fuss with me, and they tried stirring up a bunch of shit. And that person actually happened to be specifically Tara Harrington's roommate, and I got that individual on film, and he was causing a whole fuss about me causing little microaggressions and me being racist against Asians. I was like, dog, how am I racist against Asians? I love Asians. I want to go visit Asia. Like the conversation that we were saying that you were hearing out of context was me saying that Asian people notice that Caucasian people smell like dairy products, right? The same way Caucasian people that visit Asian people's homes notice that they smell a little bit like fish products. Like it's a body odor thing. It's a real part of life. We were just discussing the science of it. And the reason that conversation came up is because we were discussing how certain people from certain regions of the world um, are lactose intolerant, while certain people in other regions of the world are not. And it has to do with evolution. It has to do with what our bodies have been, made to get used to for so many years. of diet and nutrition. And the reason that conversation came up is because we're a coffee shop and we offer oat milk and we offer whole milk, right? And so, you know, me and this guy that worked there, we're having just an intellectual conversation among ourselves, and Tara's roommate came up and tried to act uh, all frustrated about how she feels and stuff, and how we were being racist and stuff. And so I cleared the air as best as I could. And then later on, another gay individual um, came by um, with like an axe and a knife and stuff. And I asked why all the drama and why all the weaponry. And she was like, well, we need these in case we feel threatened here, in case somebody's on our turf, you know. And she was talking about how she went camping and how she's just passing dicks between her and her friend, and they would just like suck it back and forth. And like, it's not like I went and complained about that being a microaggression. It's not like I was made super uncomfortable about somebody comfortably discussing their sex life with a friend, even though they were kind of within earshot, right? But any small thing that they could attempt to twist into some sort of excuse to get rid of me, they very much did. And Tara's roommate did that, and as did that other dude that identified as it's a woman that identified as a dude, and so as did the he, right? And so these two folks were causing drama. The next day, I show up to the same place where I'm volunteering. I'm not working at U.S. Thai Cuisine anymore, right? And I'm volunteering and I'm helping out. I helped them open when somebody was late to their shift. Um, and like a couple hours later, somebody shows up. I'm like, hey, why are there beers in the fridge? We're a coffee shop. We don't want to get shut down. Um, like, I understand that you guys go camping and stuff, but just make sure we don't get this volunteer organization shut down over some nonsense. And who comes running down all the way from their home in downtown Flagstaff? None other than Tara Harrington's roommate. Um, and they come rushing over, and I caught them on video when they said they pulled me into they tried pulling me into a back room, right, to have a discussion with me. And so I made sure to get it on footage. I was like, this person's been stirring the pot so much, trying to start shit. I'm going to make sure I get them on camera. I'm going to make sure I film exactly what they say. And so I very much did. And basically, she went off, he went off, they went off, whatever they identify as. They went off and started going, oh, well, this and that, and microaggressions and racism against Asians. And I refuted everything she said, everything they said with like specificity. I was like, okay, with this aggression that you're claiming happened, it did not happen. You were taking things out of context, and you're acting frustrated about something that I already cleared the air about, and that happened like several times. And eventually, at the end of the day, that person was like, well, we no longer feel comfortable with you here. I was like, well, I don't feel comfortable with somebody bringing weapons and threatening me just because of my race and just because I'm volunteering here, right? And it became very clear that logic wasn't going to work, right? This person's coworker wasn't able to sleep with me and get some free money, and they were very frustrated, and they were going to do everything in their power to try to get free money from the government and try to rob somebody of money they were owed from the government. And they worked with the National Guard, and they were, very much in the know, right? They were very frustrated that they weren't getting a free ride from me. And so they said, oh, well, you no longer get to work here. And so that's basically the story of U.S. Thai Cuisine, the corruption, the sex scandals, and how they work with the National Guard, how they brag about it, how they showed me themselves with disguises and without disguises, um, and all that sort of drama. And their excuse is that I gave a mango to a woman that looked kind of like Jasmine Barkus. Their excuse is, oh, you buy cashews over by Walgreens, and Jasmine wears cashew earrings. It's just like all this kind of delusional fucking, we feel entitled, you're our savior, you should give us everything you have kind of nonsense. And and very similar to my experience at Iwa's Thai Cuisine when I went and worked at Hero's Sushi. They tried to force relationships there as well. Sayef Abdullah's wife would come as a restaurant visitor, and they were like, "Okay, do you want to date her?" I was like, "No, I'm not interested. You know, it's just a customer we were serving." And she brought her kiddos with her, and then Campbell was a pseudonym of a woman that worked at Heroes Sushi, but that person is actually Lilia Bernanke, somebody that was romantically interested in me, but I had to shut it down because, long story short, uh, uh, she can't handle being faithful, and she can't handle monogamy. And so I was like, if self control with simple things like that aren't going to work, I don't want to date you. I don't want to be around you. And she just kept leveraging her bosses against me because she's very powerful and her father is very rich and he used to be the U.S. treasurer, Ben Bernanke. And he would come to my restaurant at U.S. Thai Cuisine. Even then, long after I stopped seeing Lilia, him and his wife would show up to U.S. Thai Cuisine and try to intimidate me. It was just really uncomfortable, right? And it's this really entitled chick, and she's wearing this expensive disguise, and she goes by the name of Campbell, and she's trying to force a relationship with me. She's trying to wow me with her Spanish skills, and it's all really sad and it's all really uncomfortable. And to be honest, like I just kept getting hints that she might be a little special, right? Like after somebody delicately lets you down so many times and you're not taking a hint, there's a problem. And just like at US Magazine, because I didn't want to date her, because I didn't want to date Sayef's wife, who also visited the restaurant, and Taki, the manager, was posing them both as options. He's like, okay, well, you have to pick one. I was like, neither. Like, I'm just here to work. And so he cut my shift short that day. He was like, okay, restaurant's slow. We're gonna have to let you go. And on no other days of me working at the restaurant was anybody ever cut from their shift. Only that one day did they cut me short of my shift. Every other day, we kept all the staff on and we closed the restaurant early, right? But only that day when I refused to date Lilia Bernanke and when I refused to date Sayef Abdullah's wife, the F-16 pilot, only on those days, only on that one day was I let go early for my shift and sent home, right? Out of frustration that I wasn't going to be going along with their little master plan of forcing me to date somebody so that they can be entitled to part of my security clearance compensation, or hoping that I would marry them so that they could run off with half. And and so that went on, and eventually they started posing Campbell's best friend, uh, uh, who told me that she was her lesbian lover. Uh, they tried saying, okay, well maybe you could be interested in her, and Jeremy made it all awkward. And at the end of our shift, they were trying to talk about Switzerland. They're like, tell us all about Switzerland. Tell us how your trip was. And which is cool with me. They could use whatever metaphor for Israel they want. But the fact of the matter is, Lilia Bernanke and her coworker Maddie, her bestie supposedly, are Israeli, uh, which is fine. Good for them. They have a Jewish background. They come from that part of the intelligence community. A vast majority of the people in my squadron, 612 ACOMs, at Davis Monthan Air Force Base are Jewish. It's a huge Jewish community. They have their own little squadron, and I got along with everybody there just fine. I was never racist or anything, but Lily and Maddie would always try to rub it in my face, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, well guess where we're from," and they would treat me like a second-class citizen. Like they would make me do more work. They would make me do more dishes. They would make me do more busing. They would literally be in the back room texting and talking to each other while I would be cleaning up, picking up their slack. When I would ask them to please help, they would say yes, and then they wouldn't help. In fact, one time I asked Maddie to come please help, and Lilia, who went by Campbell at that restaurant, she went to Maddie and she's like, "No, don't help him bust the tables." And I was busting their tables, right? They left their. I always clean up after my tables because I can bus and I can serve and I can run food all at the same time. It's no trouble to me. I can handle all of that. But they tried making me bust all their tables, and they had several big tables that night, and they just left all the dishes there, and they were just in the back room texting. It's like, when I'm not making money, I like to clean up and leave, right? I'd like to go home now. It's the end of the night. There's no reason why we should just like hang around and make, what was it, like awful amount of dollars an hour, like 12 bucks minimum wage an hour or something. And so it was really demeaning, right? They would treat me differently, and they would rub it in my face that they were Israeli, as if to say, "Oh well, you have a Palestinian heritage, therefore we see you as less because there's a political and war sort of conflict going on there right now. We're gonna treat you like less." And it's not like they were, uh, it's not like it was undertones. No, they were very overt about it, and they literally said it, and that's what just made it very pathetic and rude. And I was tired of that shit, and so I let the bosses know. I was like, "Hey, bosses, this is the kind of treatment I've been dealing with." They refused to let me into the group chat that you specifically ordered them to let me into, that you specifically requested that I be put into. They refused several times. They would put their phone in airplane mode and then send me the invitation. And I let my bosses know about all of that, and um, that's not even like half of the trouble I had with these ladies. I'm supposed to receive full training for my to be competent in the menu and to be competent in the restaurant as a server. Well, Campbell wanted me to do everything exactly her way, wanted me to talk to customers her way. She's the manager, fine. So I did just that. And then one day, Taki and Jeremy were kind of managing me because Campbell wasn't there. And they were like, well, you don't have to do it exactly like this. Everybody has their own way. And so I got the hint that, I didn't have to do it as autistically as Lilia Bernanke was doing it. And so I just didn't, I did it in a way that helped everybody as best as possible. Like I made sure I knew what the chefs wanted, what they needed. Sushi chefs are like, hey, we have trouble seeing the tallies sometimes, so circle them. So not only did I circle them, but I put a big star in each section so that they knew, okay, there's something in this section. Oh, there it is right there. It's circled, right? And so I did my best to accommodate everybody. But Campbell took offense that I wasn't doing everything her way, and she high key has some, autistic tendencies and some like meltdown type issues going on. And so I basically wasn't getting trained, and training was supposed to take 1 month, and it was a month had passed, and I still wasn't fully trained. But I was very competent. I knew what to do. I knew how to handle the menu. But there were some things where, like, if you're not told, you're just not gonna know, right? They never told me that with the yakisoba, I have to make sure to ask the customer, okay, do you want Japanese Worcestershire sauce or do you want teriyaki sauce, right? They never told me that. But I found out after I wrote it in for the chef. The chef was like, well, you need to tell me which one of these. And so I went and told my manager, instead of going to the customer, I was like, hey, I wasn't trained on this. How do I go about this? And then the manager had to tell me, okay, well, you have to go to the customer, blah, blah, blah. And so the training was very disorganized, very unprofessional, and they also assigned a very incompetent person and a very somebody that took personal offense to my existence, and somebody that took personal offense that in the past I didn't want to date them. Um, they assigned that person to be my trainer, and Lilia followed me up to Flagstaff. Right, I've been traveling across the country, just working odd jobs, and she's been following me. Like just the other day, I was working at a Papa John's in Eagle, Idaho, and over there she went by the pseudonym Jessica Brown because she was executive assistant for Charles Brown, a general that is being ousted for soliciting prostitutes and having the prostitute used as blackmail against him. And so it's this whole thing of her being obsessed with me and being super autistic and not being able to take no for an answer, and her daddy is super powerful and he's gonna do this and that if I don't date her. It's been this whole thing, right? And so she followed me over to Flagstaff. I get a job at the sushi place, and she acts as my manager, but she hasn't been working there for long either, so she's super incompetent. She doesn't know how to train me. I start getting in trouble for small things here and there because I wasn't trained. And by getting in trouble, I don't mean by the managers. I mean as in, like, I run into trouble with the chef or with the customer not getting the right thing, and I have to tell the manager, and the manager's like, okay, well, you don't know this because you're new, blah blah blah, this is why, this that. And so I wasn't being trained well, but they were docking my tips to pay money out to my trainer. So basically Lilia Bernanke was just getting money for not training me well. So basically she could treat me like shit and ensure that she's getting paid for it. And that's exactly what was happening. There was racism going on, there was sexual harassment going on, and I let the bosses in on this, and they very much knew it. In fact, they sat me down at one point, and they're like, okay, her training you is atrocious. She's really bad at training you. Maybe we could have you work with Maddie instead. the other chick that was racist against you, the other chick that also doesn't pull her weight. And so it was just this gross fucking thing of some dumb managers trying to handle something in a unprofessional way, in a very unprofessional environment, and needing a job, and so basically just taking the beatings, right? I'm just like, oh, okay, you're gonna change my schedule because you don't want me to work with this chick, but you want me to work with this shit chick instead, so I can get trained, and so I can finally start to get my full tips because I'm at like 40%, 60% right now, and they're like, yes, okay. It's like, okay, yeah, I would definitely like to finish up the remaining 60% of my tips. I would definitely like to finish up the remaining 40% of my tips. Like, why should that? Why, like, at no place have I ever worked where they just outright stole your tips. Sure, you're supposed to tip out the restaurant, you're supposed to tip out the kitchen and stuff. And different restaurants have different tip percentages. A sushi place where the chefs are highly trained, you tip out like 20-25%. That's fine by me. But at like Iwa's Thai Cuisine, for example, you only have to tip them out 10%, because you're basically enduring a lot of the stress of running around and dealing with customers and pretending to be happy, and giving the customer a smile when the chef fucks up and apologizing. And so that's how tip percentages work. But over at Hero Sushi, not only was I tipping out 25%, but after that, the remaining tips that I had, they would take a huge chunk of it and just give it to Lilia for being my trainer. In reality, she's been financially punished by this shadow court system that is with the security clearance compensation work, and basically she screws up, she owes me money, and they're like, oh well, she owes you money, now you owe her money, and so they're doing this whole petty thing where her daddy is a powerful former treasurer, and therefore he gets to embezzle the government for money, and it's kind of gross, but and it started to personally affect me beyond my taxpayer dollars being siphoned out to this chick. Um, she also wanted to basically rob me of my tips, and the bosses sat me down, like I was saying earlier. The bosses sat me down and they're like, hey, this woman is awful at training you. It really should only take like a week to train you up. I don't know what's going on there. And so they send me to her friend to train me. uh, Although at that point I no longer need training, like I'm fully trained. All the questions that I wasn't trained up on, I already had asked. The only thing remaining was me to be trained on the sushi menu. And it's not like the customers order every single sushi item that is on the menu. That never happens, right? There's like 50 sushi rolls, and so many of them are basically just never ordered. And so uh, the consequence of that was them saying, oh well, you don't know all the roles. It's like, well, how am I going to know all the roles if I've never seen them? And they're like, well, you're just going to have to wait. And it's like, well, if I just have to wait to learn the sushi rolls and it's not my fault, why am I being docked for my tip out? And why are you punishing me for not being fully trained, like verbally punishing me and telling me that I'm not being a good employee if it's your fault for not having shown me all the sushi rolls? And so these guys are like fucking idiots. I mean, they're managers that don't know how to manage, and beyond the incompetence, there was definitely malice going on. They were trying to give their Israeli friend, their little Lilia Bernanke, Ben Bernanke's daughter, some special treatment, and they wanted to do it at my expense. And I was like, dude, I'm gonna shout it off from the rooftops. I'm gonna let everybody know what you're up to, because that's just not cool. I don't care if she's autistic. I treat her well for it. I don't care if her father is Ben Bernanke. I treat her the way I would treat any other coworker, which is with a lot of kindness and respect. In response, I'm basically robbed by all of you. And I made that very clear, and I told them that several times, and I told them I was very frustrated about it. And a couple days I got sick, and I couldn't show up to work, and not being at work felt really good. I told my boss, I was like, hey, not being at work feels really good. Like, the people at work are like bullies. They treat me like shit. You guys are awful about giving me the right kind of treatment, and it's just like I almost would love to be just a little bit sick so I wouldn't have to show up to work. And um, and the response text that I got was, well, it only takes 3 days to train you. It shouldn't have taken you this long to get trained up. It's all your fault. The fact that you wish you would prefer to be sick and not be at work because it feels better is a bad sign. and that's not very cool of you. And basically, they were trying to flip it on me. All of the bad treatment, all of the money stolen from me, they were trying to flip it on me. And they were like, "Oh, this is our moment to fire you, right?" And so that was that. They basically let me go. They're like, "We're not gonna have you working with us any longer." And I left it at that, and I didn't care very much, and so I moved on. And but what I did have to do is what I'm doing right now, which is document all of this. Document the treatment I got at US Taikazine, document the treatment that I got at Hero Sushi here in Flagstaff, because what they are is people that basically take advantage of their company and take advantage of their understanding of the intelligence community to rob people of their security clearances. It's not like I was trained up on the spycraft that they're trained up on. No, they're just like throw me into the water, hope I drown, so that they can skim a bunch of money. And I'm gonna let the world know about it. And if push comes to shove, and it takes me taking them to court, then so be it. But they're going to great lengths, including sexual harassment, including trying to force me to make love to gay people, including General Tersini's son, Ethan Tersini. Just the other day, he was sending me a nudie and hoping I would be gay, so that he could try to clear his mother's name. But it's so far beyond that. I mean, when you're a wing commander and you're a general and you're covering up rapes on your base, you don't get to fuck your way out of that one. I'm sorry. I never thought I would have to say that. It's just, uh, yeah, this is the kind of people I'm dealing with, and this is the kind of people that are hoping to force themselves into my life one way or another and try to pose as friends, pose as spouses, pose as girlfriends, and pose as coworkers. And it goes all the way to the top. It goes all the way to former cabinet staff. It goes to all the way up to current cabinet staff. It has to do with generals taking prostitutes as bribes. It has to do with a special needs kid with microcephaly, Saif Ulhak, pointing loaded firearms at me and getting frustrated that I would get a restraining order. He even tried blaming the judge for it the other day. Like, what? How are you going to blame a judge for issuing a restraining order when you admitted to pointing loaded firearms at me in front of the judge? Like, it's not like any of that was some sort of secret. It's not like any of that didn't happen. It very much did happen. And so, yeah, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that I deal with, and I just hope to give you guys a little update about Iwa's Thai Cuisine and Hero Sushi, because I've been getting some questions about that. I've been getting told, "Oh, well, everybody, thinks Jasmine is beautiful," and it's like, yeah, sure, she has a beautiful body, and if I was browsing the internet and I didn't know her, and I didn't know her intimately, maybe I might enjoy perusing that kind of content. But unfortunately, I knew her personally, and I just don't want to be involved in her life, and so I've been just like steering dead clear. Uh, After I left US Thai Cuisine, she showed up to Heroes Sushi, and she would harass me there. She would act as a customer there, and she would be a bad customer. So did Tara Harrington, her transgender coworker. He would show up to Heroes Sushi and stay super late, like half an hour late after close, and just like spend time sitting there and just trying to make work difficult for us. I informed the bosses. I let them know. I'm like, hey, these people are harassing me. This is so and so. This is so and so. The next day, Jasmine comes back with her siblings, and my boss is giving them free dessert and stuff. He's like rewarding them for treating me like shit. So that at that point, it became very clear to me that Taki and Jeremy were very much in on the fact that I was having my security clearances and my sexual assault compensation. They were direct attempts at robbing me of that, and there was people that were basically following me around, harassing me for it. And so yeah, Taki was giving them dessert and stuff, and then like a couple weeks later, Jasmine comes back and she orders a big bottle of wine, and Taki's like, "Ooh, she ordered a whole bottle of wine. What a good customer." And it's like, no, bitch, this lady's been harassing me so much and sexually harassing me too, and it's just like, it's just so uncomfortable, and they were all in cahoots, and they were all working together, and it was all very clear. Also, something else that would happen at Hero Sushi is they would arrange to have tables come in certain ways so that I would always have less customers than all the other servers. Now, you would think that wouldn't matter because we pool together the tips and then we split out the percentages. And so it doesn't matter who has a bigger table, who has a smaller table. It all, either way, it gets split up in a fair way. and we try to cover each other when one person is busier than the other. There was a couple times where I took tables from Campbell and she was super busy. There were a couple times where she took a couple tables from me without asking because it was super busy. So it's just what you do when you're pooling tips together. You make sure the whole restaurant's taken care of. It's a pretty good way to go about that. But Sayaf Abdullah, the person arranging for this whole security clearance compensation theft, what he would do is make sure that I always had less customers, and that way, the documentation of who has what table and how many customers and the total head count at the end of the night, I always had less people, and that way they could attempt to further justify Lilia Bernanke, aka Campbell, taking my tips because supposedly she had 5 more head count than me, therefore she gets to take 40% of my tips or 30% of my tips. Somehow in their heads that was justified, and so I kept track of that. I noticed that they were getting separate. Always had more tables than me. It wasn't about who came in first, who came in second. It was just about making sure that she had a higher head count, and so she could attempt some legal CYA. Um, and when I mentioned as much, because I always had to report back to the managers and be like, hey, this is the kind of treatment I'm dealing with. This is the kind of things that I'm noticing. I don't think that's very cool. I don't think that's justification for giving me lower tips. If she needs to give me one of the tables so that we even out, so be it. There's no reason why this person should be robbing my tips. Like, at that point, it became kind of like a very common point of discussion, and Taki was getting very frustrated, right? Because he was running out of excuses. First, he thought that I couldn't pull my weight, and I showed him that I could. Like, he intentionally made all of us have the same head count, and he was like, oh shit, you can pull your weight. Okay, well, it's because you don't know the menu well. It's like, well, I already asked you all the questions about the menu that I didn't know, and I'm fully trained. It's been a month and a half. It was only supposed to take a week to train me, but it took me that much longer. You guys robbed me of tips for that entire time period, and I did make it very clear that I know the menu now. And he was like, well, you haven't seen all the sushi rolls. You don't know those sushi rolls by heart. I was like, I do know all the sushi rolls by heart. The only ones I don't know are the ones that I haven't seen yet because they haven't been made before. And from time to time, Maddie would steal my sushi and take it to her table because her sushi was later on in the order. And if it was the same order, she would just take mine and serve it to her table. And that way, I suffered the consequence of a disgruntled customer, while she got a very happy customer who got an immediate sushi roll, right? And so, if I grabbed a sushi roll later and it just happened to be slightly off from the one that I ordered for my table, I would get a complaint about it, and it became this whole thing. And I had to go to Taki and be like, Taki, Maddie's stealing my sushi from the window. I was supposed to go to my customer. She took it to her customer instead. Uh, she's the one causing the sushi roll drama, right? Like, I'm fully trained up on sushi rolls. I can do just fine. And Taki's response wasn't, oh, you know what, you do know the sushi rolls, or, oh, well, how could you know the sushi rolls if you're never trained on them? Of course you wouldn't get trained up in 1 week. Instead of that kind of a response, um, what he did was, much later on when he texted me, his excuse was, well, you're not fully trained yet, and that's all your fault. And so that's one of the reasons why we're letting you go. And I tried addressing the racism. I tried addressing the theft of tips. I tried addressing my coworkers not cleaning up their own tables at the end of the night and them just hanging out on their phones, and being my managers and my trainers, right? They had the ability to just point me around and tell me what to do, and I'm wanting to keep my job and not caring about their age, not caring about what country they hail from. Obviously, I did what I was told. It's a job. I needed to earn my keep. I got it. It's like, oh, if I need to bust tables for my training period, that's fine. But it turns out they just weren't pulling their own weight, and they tried covering it up. And they did so by firing me. And in the firing text, they went against a lot of what they had been telling me for so long. Instead of saying, oh, well, uh, you know, it's reasonable for you not to not be trained yet. Campbell sucks at training you. She's autistic. Lilia Bernanke is autistic. Instead, what they told me was, oh, well, uh, the reason you're not fully trained yet is your fault, and it should only take 3 days, and you're incompetent. And so I think that's enough of that. I think I documented a majority of what I should document. Something I'd like to add is a couple of times this kid named Liam who worked as a dishwasher would, on the busiest nights, he would always come out of the dish station where he was loaded with dishes and try to have conversations with me. And I mean, he's a dishwasher. I get it. You show up to work stoned, your eyes look like laser beams. I get it. Do your thing, right? But it was very apparent that he was definitely trying to distract me from my tables and make me look like an ineffective employee. And several times I had to tell him, hey, it's a busy night. I don't have time to talk to you. Maybe we can catch up later, you know? And so that was another common reoccurrence that made it very clear to me that these people were pitted against me. And something Saif Ulhaq likes to do is try to paint it as some sort of paranoia, right? And that's why it's important for me to document these things. It's important for me to document Saif Ulhaq living with me as my roommate Bao. It's important for me to document all of that because these people can be very shitty, and from the restaurants to the roommates to the generals and chief of staff of the Air Force himself. It's very important for me to document this stuff because what they do is they try to use all their military weapon systems, all their expensive disguises to pretend that it's a war game, when in reality it's organized crime, and what they really want is to rob you of your security clearance compensation. And to that they feel entitled, and to that I will fight.